Hey guys, and welcome to /Rex Games. So today I'm going to be showing you how to do a character select screen. It's one of the most requested suggestions right now for this series, so I thought I'd just get it out of the way. So in my video, because I don't really have the time to go and create these sprites all over again to look slightly different depending on what we're going to select, all I've got are these different color cards, and then depending on what the player clicks on, I'm going to be telling the server that my player is going to be represented as the usual player that we see here, but he's going to have a different color overlay. So if it's red, he's going to be in red. If it's yellow, he's going to be yellow, and stuff like that. Cool, so there are my selects, very simple. I'm going to create two buttons here. Menus, main menu. One's going to be Object BTN Play, and that's going to have a play sprite over there. When we press that, it's going to take us to the select room. RM player select. I'll make that room in a second. Then I'm going to need Object BTN back, and that's going to take us to the main menu. Pretty simple stuff. Now let's go into those rooms and let's change some things. Here we go. Main menu. This used to take us straight into the action. Now I want a button over here to take us to the character select, so let's leave the join game. Let's put in our play button. Okay, cool. And now let me duplicate the main menu, and let's call this RM player select. Okay, delete these buttons. Let's put in the join game on the right and the back button on the left. There we go. Cool. So what we want to do over here is we want to display the cards for the different characters that the player can select here at the top. And I think I've got about 6 of them, so they're going to be displayed from left to right. We're going to be doing all of that stuff, all the creation code that is, in the room create event. I'm also going to be selecting the default. The very first one's going to be the default, just in case the player hastily clicks join without selecting one. I'd rather just get them into the action with the default color than have a message telling them, hey, you got to choose something. Because remember, at any time they can jump out of the game and it'll take them back to the main menu where they can get to the screen again and then join the game again. So it's not too much of a problem if they don't like a color that they've been assigned. So let's head over into the settings, creation code. Let's expand this a little. I'm going to say var x equals 200. That's going to be the x coordinate of the first card. Then I'm going to do a for loop. Var I equals 0. I is going to be less than a certain amount. Let's see how many we've got here. Okay. I is going to be less than 6 because we've got 6 of those. And here we're going to say I++. Then var s equals instance create at xx and 200. Something called object player select. So that's something that doesn't exist just yet, but I'm going to be pumping it full of variables and it's going to do all kinds of cool stuff. So s image index is going to be I. Okay, so the first one that's going to be created will be 0. Then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, and then as you see there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the last one far on the right will be yellow, and the first one would be blue. So blue will be the default. Okay, so that's image index equals I. Then s.selected, default to false, s.alpha equals 0.5. So they're all going to have an alpha of 0.5, and when the player clicks on one, that alpha is going to change to 1, and that's how you're going to see which one is active or selected. Then let's increase the x by 300 pixels. So that'll move to the right, where it will repeat this for the next one, move a bit to the right, and so on, till it's completed the yellow one. So now, let's do the default. Let's say selected card equals, we can use instance find actually, because that can take in an object and a number. So let's grab the very first one, that's at element 0. Then let's grab these two, paste them here, change s with selected card, and this becomes true, and this becomes 1. Great stuff. So that's our default. Let's actually put that out there. Default card selected. And then let's put over here, create a row of selects. So that's the way I suggest you do it. You have your player selects as one sprite that has multiple sub-images, and then you can just create those out really easily. So now let's create this object player select. Can accept all those. Minimize our folders that we don't need to open. Okay, object, create object, paste it in. We have to give it a sprite, which is going to be the object player selects collection of sub-images. Then we need to give it some variables. Those ones we pretty much used in the room create. We need a selected, which is going to default to false. We need an alpha, which is going to default to 0.5. And we need an image speed, obviously, which is going to be 0. We don't want these flashing through all the sub-images. Okay, cool stuff. Let's create a mouse left pressed right on here. And what it's going to say, with all the instances of this object, let's set their selected to false and their alpha to 0.5. So now nothing's selected. And now that nothing's selected, we can say that this one is selected, whatever the player selected, whatever the player clicked on. And then let's also set a variable called global.playerType equal to the image index of this object. So it's the instance of this object, the representation of which. So if this was the yellow one, the image index would be 5, if that's correct. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yellow is 5. Then our player type would equal the number 5. Now we can use that 5 to send to the server and send to all the other clients. And on their side, they can say, hey, if I'm a 5, that means I'm yellow. And they can apply a yellow overlay to the remote player on their side that I am represented as. Pretty cool stuff, eh? So that's the way we're going to be doing things. It's a very lightweight way of setting sprites up. And lastly, let's create a draw event. Draw sprite, come on, show me ext, sprite index, image index. Next we've got x, y, image x scale, image y scale, image angle. Then our color is going to be C white, and that's where we bring in that alpha value. Cool beans, right over there. Now because of this added feature, some things are going to have to change. Usually we were just sending in a player ID and a player name when someone joined a server, but now there's another element here. We've got to send in this number between 0 and 5, which represents the player's color, to the server. And we do that actually in the game world, when we join the game world over here. Because if we look at the join game button, this pretty much just sends us to the game world. And if we look in the game world, right over here, we're creating our player, and then we're telling the server that we're joining the game. So if you remember correctly, a 6 was that room change message. That's our player ID. This one is the room, which room we're going to. So we're going to room number 1. So let's add one in between these two. It can be a U8 also, and that's going to be our global.player type right over there. It's pretty simple. So by the time we get to this room, this value would have already been set. So let's head on over to the server and intercept this new variable. So we're going to expand handle incoming packets. It was a 6. Right down here, 3, and there's a 6. Okay, so it was after the player ID and before the room ID. Let's call this type. Okay, it was a U8. And then down here, with object player, we're going to say player type equals type. So that means that the representation of ourselves on the server, which is an object player, is going to be updated to have a type. So at any point in time when one of the other players, or even myself, requests information about me, we can just send all the variables of this object. So make sure we are updating that whenever we need to. Then tell other players about this change. Same over here below ID. So U8, we can pass in that type. And let's keep going down. What do we got here? The player is going to the game room. Here we go. Line 133. Let's copy that. Paste over here. It's a U8. And it's player dot player type. Okay, so this variable is that one. Alright, cool stuff. So that's going to be sending a 6 with the identifier, a 6 with the ID, the player type, and the player name. So that's pretty much everything we need to do on the server. Let's jump straight back into the client and follow this. So let's minimize these. Let's expand our handle incoming packets. Go inside here. Let's look for A6. There we go. ID, pname. So let's grab that over here. It's a U8. Let's call it ptype. Let's set up our remote player characteristics. Remote player dot remote player type equals ptype. And I think that's pretty much it for case 6. So just like that, we've got any room change requests from the server. We're using that ID to figure out which remote player we need to update, and in this case that'll set its type up. So if it's the yellow one, we're going to be setting up remote player type's going to have a value of 5. And now let's go into the object local player and object remote player and tell them to do things with these numbers that they're getting. So firstly, let's go to the local player over here. Now because I'm using colors, I don't have to tell this player to set to a different sprite. I can just set up a color and then draw an overlay. But in your case, you'd use that value to then create a switch statement and then display a different sprite. So I'm going to create a variable called color. I'm going to give it a default. That's our good /Rex Games Lime. Then I'm going to do a switch on the global player type. Remember, that's the variable that was updated when we clicked on one of our selects. And here we've got a case 0 all the way up to case 5. And pretty much all it does is updates this color variable. So let's see, 0 was blue. So if I remember correctly here, blue is 0, 191, and 243. Then the next one is green. Now that's exactly the same as this one. And that's 1. See, 1, 1. 2 is magenta. 237, 0, 140. Then next 3 is orange. Orange is 248, 148, 29. Then 4. This is red. And that one's easy, 25500. Then lastly 5, which was yellow. 255, 242, and 0. Just like that. So this is where you'd put your switch and you'd say sprite index equals something, sprite index equals something else, sprite index equals something else, and so on. It could be sprite index equals warrior, you know, SPR warrior, SPR wizard, and you could have SPR ranger, stuff like that. And because you're making these changes to the sprite through the code, you need to jump into a draw event. And obviously you'd draw sprite extended. Here you'd use sprite index and image index, and then X, and then Y, and then image X scale, image Y scale. We've got our image angle. Here I'm going to put color. You could just put CY to make no change to your color, obviously, because in your case, this one would change, depending on what you've selected in that create. And then here, image alpha, which should still be 1. Very good. Let's see what else we got here. Press escape. This is also a 6, so we need to update these. Otherwise, it's going to be trying to get to the room 0, which is back to anywhere but the game room, and then it's going to freak out because it's missing one more variable. That's going to be our player type. Very good. So that's all we need to do to update that. If you have any other messages that send a tag of 6, you have to make sure that they're sending the right information. You can't leave anything out, because best case scenario, you're going to get an error saying that it's trying to read the incorrect data type. Worst case scenario is nothing goes wrong, but you're going to get the wrong values being sucked into the wrong places without you even knowing, and that can be hell to debug. Okay, so next is remote player. I'm going to grab this create, the code there. Let's go into remote player, wherever you are. There you are. Let's put this in a step event over there. Let's take out this one and put that in a create event. And obviously just initialize remote player type equals to 0, default. If anything goes wrong, set it to blue. When in doubt, always go blue. And then the draw event is going to need to be updated. Let's delete the draw self. Let's actually go into object local player. Let's grab that line. And let's paste it below the remote player name. Just like that. So that's pretty much everything we needed to do. Let me run through that one more time with you. So in our player select room, we've got enough space up here to create our selects. We're creating 6 of them, and we're setting up the very first one to be selected. We might as well actually say global.playerType equals 0. Right over there. Very good. So once we've sorted out that, it means the player is now able to select one of those and then join the game. So in these selects, they set to false by default, as not selected. In the left pressed event, we change what they look like so the user knows what's selected, and then we update these values. This one is the important one right over here. So if this was the first player select, this value would be 0. If it was the last one, this value would be 5. See, 0 for first, 5 for the last one. Then when the user wants to play the game, he clicks the join button, which takes him to the game world, in which we are sending this extra variable to the server in the 6. Then that gets intercepted in the server's handling incoming packets. Here, there it is, it's the second one. And we just update all places where we need to store this information or send it to the other players with that extra piece of information. There's the type, and then down here, player type. And that gets sent back to the clients in a 6. See, just like that. So that makes its way back to the client into handle incoming packets over here. Number 6, there's the P type getting read in. It's a U8. We're setting up our remote player that's represented by this ID. And that's pretty much all it needs to do. Then in your local player and your remote player, you can grab that player type and do something with it. In this case, I've used it to change the color depending on what the player has selected. Just like that. Very good. Okay. So save everything. So now I'm going to fire up a server. I'm going to be firing up 2 clients, and we're going to make sure that things work out. Okay, just one thing that we need to correct that I've noticed in the step event. This needs to be remote player type. Right over there. Save event of remote player. Cool. So now let's test this out and see what happens. Cool, so there's my server. I've got 2 clients open. Let's select red for this player and magenta for this player. Join. Red guy's in. He can move around. Magenta guy's in. See that? So the magenta guy sees the other player as red, and the red guy sees the other player as magenta. Pretty cool stuff. And they can communicate as before, like nothing's ever changed. So that about wraps up the character select for your network game. If you have any questions about this, put them in the comments. I'm sure I can help you out. I hope you found this tutorial educational and helpful. Please feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe, and suggest other things that you might think everyone else could get value in if I cover them. If you like cool mobile games, check out Element Earth on the Amazon App Store as well as Google Play. Links are in the description. You can also find the project file for this in the description. If you like this video as well as many of my other videos, please check out my Patreon campaign. I do appreciate your support. So until next time, happy coding, and I'll see you then.